Hi, this is Ian Hill from Judas Priest, and you're watching CMS TV.
That's 3 Inches of Blood right here on the Classic Metal Show from their latest release called Here Waits Thy Doom, and the name of that tune there is called Rock in Hell. And tell you what, if you've been following 3 Inches of Blood, you know these guys rock in hell, and they do a hell of a good job of it, but I guess their hell would be Canada. But anyway, we want to welcome to the show Shane Clark, guitarist of 3 Inches of Blood. Welcome to the Classic Metal Show there, Shane.
Thank you very much. Good to be here.
Well, you guys hailing from Canada, you guys are in good company up there. You got a lot of great metal bands and legacy bands, and you guys are following suit.
Yeah, I mean, I consider that a big compliment, so thank you. But you know, we grew up on a lot of the Canadian metal bands, you know, from the '80s. Like one of the biggest influences being Voivod, and but there's a lot of great bands. Sure. Over the years, you know, like Exciter and Razor from the '80s, all the way up to Strapping Young Lad and stuff.
Right.
So,
right.
There's been a lot of good influence, you know, over the years.
Well, you got to be kind of proud because you're kind of fitting right in there, making some noise for yourself as 3 Inches of Blood, and being signed to Century Media Records and getting more worldwide exposure and whatnot. So, hey, congratulations on the new CD.
Thanks very much, man.
Well, you know, I was looking over a little bit of your history, and we've been doing the Classic Metal Show for about 14 years, and you know we've represented some of the Canadian bands. In fact, you mentioned one there, Exciter, and we've had John Ricci of Exciter here on the Classic Metal Show. And
right on, man.
Are you a big Exciter fan?
It's one of those bands that's, you know, I heard, you know, just throughout growing up, you know, especially when I was really young, just buddies, older brothers would have that stuff cranked all the time, and you know, it was always around. You know, that Sacrifice is another one. So yeah,
sure.
You know, inadvertently, especially in the beginning, I definitely was, you know, some of that was forced on me, which is a good thing.
Right, right. Well, you guys have been kicking around for about 8 years now or so, and you know, it takes a long time to sometimes get a following, especially if you're not a quote unquote a mass appeal band. And of course, I'm sure you're well aware of it, that the metal community is more of a niche market than anything else, right?
Yeah, I mean, when it gets down to talking about that kind of stuff, it's I think it's really important just to make music for the sake of making music.
Sure.
You know, shit that you like. You know, being an underground band, it's all about bringing the music to the people in a live sense. So when you hear about, you know, niche markets, and when you start talking popularity and stuff, you know, underground music never really goes away, as you're well aware.
Right.
So that's just one of those things. That's, you know, that's part of the. That's just part of the deal, you know. It's never really gonna appeal to, you know, that mass marketed type.
Yeah,
stuff
it's not gonna appeal to the Britney Spears market of the world, or the Kanye West market of the world, or anything like that. You know,
no, that definitely has its place in the world for everyman Joe who just, you know, they rely on the radio to tell them what is available for listening. But, you know, like, just to repeat myself, it's underground shit, right?
Right.
That's never really been too much thought on that.
Right. Well, you know, listening to this new release on Century Media, Here Waits Thy Doom, there's a lot of killer guitar riffs on there, a lot of riffing there going on, and I'm hearing a lot of like Iron Maiden influences there. Are you guys Maiden fans at all?
Definitely. You know, like, actually the band started out, you know, quite a few different members have come and gone. The original lineup was very influenced by Maiden.
Right.
You know, and that's an element of the band that's, you know, definitely a shared influence with the guys now, but we wanted to, you never want to really repeat yourself, because then you become, within the band maybe stagnant, and then it just becomes boring all around.
Sure. Sure.
You want to try new stuff. That influence is very much there, but it's kind of, taken a little bit of a backseat to other influences,
Sure.
Like this album specifically has a little more of a rockin' vibe to it, and that comes from a very big influence from Rainbow, UFO,
right,
Scorpions, like that first wave of metal that that we all really just we love. That's the stuff we listen to in the band, touring constantly.
Right. Well,
so that just sort of made its way into our writing process.
Sure.
This time around.
Well, listening to 3 Inches of Blood, your vocalist Cam, he has that high register vocal that as the stereotypical fan would describe as that soaring vocals. He's way up there in that almost that King Diamond range at some points.
Yep, definitely.
So it's almost like King Diamond meets Iron Maiden in a way.
Yeah, I mean that's a good way of looking at it. That just goes to his influence and stuff.
Sure.
I've talked about that a few times over the past couple of weeks in interviews and stuff, and we definitely tend to stick out because of his vocals. And I'm at the same time, if we were around maybe within the 80s, even up to the early 90s, he wouldn't stick out that much. But you know how like the musical climate kind of changed with metal in the early 90s with
right.
People's tastes obviously changed and stuff, but we're kind of introducing young kids who didn't grow up with a lot of that stuff. Like, even if you look at some of the Bay Area bands in the 80s, a lot of them, had that sort of vocal style which kind of went away.
Right, absolutely.
So it's cool. It's cool when people point that out,
Sure. Well, you mentioned the 80s on numerous, several times already in this interview. Are you guys heavily influenced and love the 80s style of metal, the way it was presented, with there was all kinds of, anywhere from the heaviest of metal to like an Exodus or a Testament, and obviously early Metallica, all the way to some, to some lesser, heavier stuff. Say more like in a Dokken or Queensryche vein, where they still had the soaring vocals and the melodic guitars. Are you guys?
We'd probably scratch those two off our list.
Okay.
I'm joking, of course, but definitely. I mean, I'll speak for myself. When I really got into music, those were the bands, because I'm 34, and those were the bands when I was a kid that just made me excited about music and playing guitar.
Sure.
And stuff. So,
sure.
The 80s are very influential for me as a guitar player, specifically, like you mentioned, like a lot of those Bay Area bands those dudes are like rhythm monsters, and that's what really influenced me, just to love the riff and just love heavy music, like
right.
All the way from, the bands you mentioned, but even earlier, like, pre-thrash, like, like I hate subgenres and shit, but, like when Anvil first came out, and Priest, and I'll say the Scorpions again, that kind of stuff. Dio, all the way up to today. We're really big fans of just straight up metal music.
Right. Right.
All the way up today. Satyricon. I don't know, man. All kinds of bands, but 80s music is definitely the stuff we grew up with. So
sure.
When we write our favorite kind of stuff that we want to hear, that's usually what translates out.
Right. Well, you just mentioned a band I was actually going to bring up here. What's your thoughts on the publicity and the notoriety that your fellow countrymen Anvil have been getting due to that documentary that's been going around for a little over a year now?
Well, I won't. I'm not going to really sugarcoat anything. I think it's great that they have exposure now. They've been around for a really long time.
Right.
But I was a little disappointed in that movie. I thought the movie made them kind of look like a bunch of idiots.
Okay.
And I kind of think that the movie maker himself, they got a lot of exposure from that, but they made them, the real life Spinal Tap, which I think is kind of unfair,
Sure.
Hey, you. Why are you watching this with commercials? Go commercial-free and unlock exclusive content. Become a VIP today on Locals, Substack, or Rumble Premium. Stop waiting.
It's almost like that dude who made the movie specifically recreated parts.
Right.
To kind of make them look like a little simpletons,
Sure.
So me personally, I was a little disappointed in a few of those things.
Right.
But that's my personal opinion,
Well,
I think the fact that those guys are opening for Priest now is awesome, and if those guys are happy, sweet, it's really none of my business. I don't even know those guys.
Right,
so
right.
If those guys are cool with it, then cool. I kind of left the theater a little bummed out.
I hear you. Well, after 30 years, though, it's kind of cool that they're finally getting some kind of recognition because, as you said in the movie, they're kind of portrayed as simpletons, and they were kind of like passed up when everybody else in their same genre and their same time frame became successful.
Yeah, and I mean, like, the original Anvil was some of the heaviest shit that ever came out at the time. Like,
right.
Rob the drummer is a very innovative metal drummer.
Sure.
Like, you listen to those first two records, and no one can beat, like, some of that shit he does.
Right.
But, growing up in Canada, where I saw a lot of the mid-period Anvil, when you're dressed up like a dominatrix and doing solos with dildos, it's kind of like, well, what were you guys expecting? I don't really know. Like, there's some influential shit they did. There's some stuff I'm not too familiar with.
Sure.
Because, for me, at a certain point in the 80s when I was a kid, it was Metallica, Slayer, or nothing. And I gauged everything on Rain and Blood.
Right.
Where, bars get reset by the younger people, and you see it over time, and it's just like, I don't even really know where I was going with that. But I would never take away any of those guys' success that they have. I think it's the music business, and it's a game, and it's very much a crapshoot. And I think that the fact that they're doing what they're doing now is awesome.
Right.
Everyone in a metal band would shit themselves in public to open up for Priest.
Right.
So,
well, let me ask you about your experience with 3 Inches of Blood, being that you've been around for about 8 years now, and you've put out several CDs and whatnot. What was the turning point for the band 3 Inches of Blood, where they finally were being recognized on a larger scale than just being local favorites playing around in the bars and whatnot? At what point did you go, all right, well, we're making a name for ourselves?
This happened. Excuse me. This happened for the band in about 2004. Oh yeah. Sure. We signed with Roadrunner Records, and that gave us, an amazing amount of exposure. And we did that album cycle for a couple of years, and we just played everywhere we possibly could. And then, with the release of the next record, we played quite a bit, and then we got on the Ozfest tour in 2007, and that gave us a really large amount of people to play in front of.
Sure.
Can you fuck off? Thanks. Sorry, I was getting hassled there. So it's not like an overnight thing. I mean, when I say overnight, it's not like we've achieved any kind of like bullshit fame thing. It's just, the more you tour, the more you get your name out by playing in front of the people. It's just one of those things that, at this point it's taken a good 5 years to garner.
Well, were you guys self-promoters and self-managing, or did you guys go out and actually seek professional management who shopped you around and got you a deal with Roadrunner, or how did you guys do it? Are you like a grassroots band, or did you?
Well, that's definitely how the band started out, but then we started working with Idol Management, who've been amazing.
Sure.
And that's the kind of thing where, going back to the Anvil movie, they never actually had a manager.
Right.
And that's kind of like, if you have a manager who is into your band as much as you are, then you have that team team effort where someone who actually does the business for a living handles that, like alongside the band where, not many people are business savvy. I'm not one of those people. So once you have a team like that with a good manager, I've found anyway, you'll be able to come across opportunities that you take,
Right.
And
well, when you guys first sought management to finally break out of the obscurity of being, just another Canadian metal band, did you guys have to like pony up your day job money to pay this management company to do this for you? What I'm asking you is were you willing to take the risk for the reward? Is what I'm saying.
Yeah, and I'll just say, like, we quit our jobs at one point, but the reward, for us would be being able to play all the time. It wasn't exactly like a money issue, because we all did that sacrifice where it's like we'll take absolutely no money to just sustain ourselves and play all the time.
Right.
So that would be, what some people would call a hardship. I look at it more like I'm not working construction,
Sure.
I don't have an apartment and vehicles anymore that own me,
Right.
Like once you have that shit, you have to have a job.
Absolutely.
So I decided to look at it more of it's just an honor to do this in this lifetime.
Right.
Like not many people get to do
Right.
what we're doing. And when I say that, I just mean staying on the road and making music.
Sure. Well, who's the principal songwriters in your band, or is it more of a group effort?
Well, the principal songwriters are me and our other guitar player, Justin. We took over songwriting duties in 2004 when the original guys quit. So, you can kind of hear a little bit of a difference with the last two records than the other one. But the way we work is Justin and I come up with, we come up with the songs, and then we show them to the rest of the guys. Cam puts lyrics on it, and then from that point, it's a collaboration.
Sure.
Any musician, listening, for example, would know that the original idea never turns out the way you thought it would. It's always improved because a collaborative effort. Two heads are better than one, four are better than one.
Right.
So
Right.
everyone puts in their 2 cents, and it just turns into the songs that they turn into.
Sure. Absolutely. Well, you guys got this new record out on Century Media Records. Obviously, how did that come about? How did you land that deal?
Well, we were free agents. We got dropped by Roadrunner about maybe a year and a half ago.
Right.
So we were free agents for about a year. So that gave us an opportunity to keep working, keep playing, and all that, but take a good look at what the options were.
Right.
And Century Media was very much, the most enthusiastic. They seemed to get what we were doing the most. So, it was we had a chance to really think it out really good and meet with them quite often. And, the album's only been out for about almost a week, and we've been on the label for a good 2-3 months, and they have done everything they said they do, which
Right.
is kind of a weird positive thing in the music business
Sure.
that I've experienced so far.
Right.
They're straight shooters. They're so far my bullshit meter hasn't gone off at all. So it's been very positive.
Sure.
We're stoked about it.
Well, is there anything in particular about Here Waits Thy Doom that you want to point out to the fans that you're particularly proud of, or it sticks out for you that maybe just the casual fan wouldn't get right away? Is there something you can kind of tell your perspective from?
Well, my perspective would just be this is a natural progression with the band. I think that this is the most. This has been as far as the songwriting goes and just the way we recorded the album. This is the band that you would hear on the record and then see live.
Sure.
We used very minimal. In the studio, that you have the option of doing a lot of things very precise and clinical with the help of technology and stuff. But we really wanted to take the approach of just rehearsing the fuck out of the songs and then going into the studio.
Right.
Completely ready. And we worked with a guy named Jack Andino who he's the master of just, for example, miking drums, and then that's the sound you get. And, there's no trigger drum sounds. We went without a click track to have a very live feel. But, there's a couple departure songs on the album, and I just feel like you don't get anywhere in life without taking chances,
Sure.
We could write Deadly Sinners 14 more times, but, how interesting would that be? I don't think very much.
Right, right.
Craving the ultimate treat without the hassle? Introducing Randy Trask No-Bake Cookies, the best gourmet no-bakes on the market today. Perfect for parties, events, work vibes, or just pure cookie bliss. Indulge in our peanut butter no-bake cookies or the irresistible chocolate peanut butter fumblers. Local delivery is available in the Ashtabula, Ohio area. Or visit www.rtnobakecookies.com and order your cookies today from Randy Trask's No-Bake Cookies.
Well, the new CD sounds great. You guys are out there rocking. One of the things I wanted to ask you is, what is the significance behind the whole Viking theme of 3 Inches of Blood? What was the thought there originally that we want to be like Viking warriors almost?
Well, that specifically, that was never our MO. Our lyrics definitely come from the escapist point of things.
Sure.
There's no political or religious or social agenda with our band. It's more escapism,
Right.
And these are things we're into. A lot of the guys are into Norse mythology and other mythology, and Cam certainly is well read with fantasy stuff. So that just comes from stuff we're into. Like another influence from music would be Dio and other fantasy-based guys. Merciful Fate was great.
Sure.
But, just my point is that's just shit we're into. You're not going to come to our show or get an album and hear about our horrible life or a bad day. Our old man was an asshole.
So you're into the whole wizards and dragons and, all that kind of good stuff.
Not necessarily the obvious stuff doing an interview.
Right.
So, another point would be, looking at certain mythologies and specifically Viking stuff. I think that appeals to us because we travel a lot and we come across obstacles, and you can turn around and go home, or you can, if you see a storm coming, then you head towards the storm and just brave it, right?
Right. Sure.
So there's we have a song called Battles and Brotherhood, which comes across as a Viking song, but it's kind of the situation that we're in.
Right.
You've got your bros on the road and you just deal with shit.
Sure.
Again, we're on the road and it's not really back-breaking work. We're not, like I said, I'm not a pipe fitter anymore and all that. But it's just, you put a lot of miles on and you just stick together and just deal with life.
Right. You're a band of warriors out there just fighting the good fight.
So to speak, yeah.
All right, excellent. All right, well, the new release from 3 Inches of Blood is called Here Waits Thy Doom. It's on Century Media Records, and go pick that up if you're kind of into maybe some Iron Maidenish riffs and maybe some King Diamond soaring vocals. I think you'll really appreciate this new release. So we want to thank Shane for calling into the Classic Metal Show and being part of the show tonight. And Shane, before we let you go, we need to ask you the traditional Classic Metal Show question.
All right.
How has Lemmy from Motorhead influenced your career?
I got a great Motorhead story. One of the first bigger package tours we ever did was Motorhead, COC, us. And a Canadian band that's not around anymore called Damn 13, but that was one of those things that, within the first 5 minutes of being there, we learned how the pros do it. And we got fucking schooled every day by Motorhead. And, you know, there's no ghost cabs on stage. You know, they're coming off full blast. It's the loudest show I ever heard. But I look at Lemmy as a guy who's been doing it for 30-plus years, and he's the real deal. Like, he is rock and roll, you know, straight up. And I just find it hard for anyone to disagree with that.
Sure.
But I'm a huge Motorhead fan, and I'm not your typical Motorhead. Well, there's a lot of fair weather fans out there, but you listen to an album like Hammered or Kiss of Death, and it's just as good, if not better, than the old shit.
Right.
You know, 30 years on.
Absolutely. All right, Shane. Well, again, we appreciate you taking the time out to talk to us here on the Classic Metal Show. Pick up the new 3 Inches of Blood release on Century Media. Here Waits Thy Doom. And Shane, as a tradition here on the Classic Metal Show, we always let our guests pick a closing song off the new release and maybe tell us a story about it.
Okay, I got a great one, actually. We'll go with Call of the Hammer. And in the lead section, I kind of rip off a couple Voivod licks off a song called Psychic Vacuum. It's on Dimension Hatros. And that was just my own personal tribute to Piggy, because he's no longer with us, and he was a very innovative guitar player. And that's just something for any Voivod diehards to check out. It's in the solo section, but that's just a ripping tune that we all like playing live so far.
Excellent. All right, well, here it is. This is 3 Inches of Blood from Here Waits Thy Doom, and this is Call of the Hammer, exclusively here on your Classic Metal Show.
Follow the chaos. The Classic Metal Show is live on X. Stream all the episodes for free, watch the show live every Saturday night, or just get there and find out what is going on with the Classic Metal Show. Get your metal feed, x.com/CMS Rocks.